Good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for coming to this presentation. The presentation is done by the American Board of Trial Advocates. The Alabama chapter has about 110 members. And I'm Layla Watson, Eric Henninger, and Scott Salter and I are all members of the Alabama chapter of ABOTA. And then Judge Smitherman is, she sits on the 10th Judicial Circuit, the circuit court up here, civil side, Jefferson County, Birmingham Division. Let me first, just by way of introduction, ABOTA. What is ABOTA? What is our organization? And it is as I said, it's a national organization. It is experienced trial lawyers and judges. Nationwide, there's about 700 members. It's a very small. You have to qualify for membership by, I think the current number is you have to have tried as first chair 10 civil jury trials to verdict. And in the days of vanishing jury trials, that has become more and more difficult. I think probably when all three of us went in, it was probably more like 20 or 25 first chair jury trials to verdict in order to be qualified at all. And then you had to be voted in, you had to pass through 2 different levels of votes. The purpose for ABOTA is the preservation and promotion of the civil jury trial right provided by the 7th Amendment. And so that's why they look for lawyers that have civil jury trial experience, because that is our mission, the preservation and protection of the right to a civil jury trial. I hope that as you all graduate, pass the bar, and become practicing lawyers, that you would consider at some point looking at ABOTA and membership in our organization. We always welcome new members, and it's a great organization. And this program was developed as part of that agenda. So, as I said, I'm Layla Watson. I'm a plaintiff's attorney here in Birmingham with Corey Watson. I've been practicing with Corey Watson or its predecessor since 1984. And I am really happy to be here because I settled a case last night that freed me up to make it for sure. Next is Eric Henninger with Henninger Garrison. And let me see, did I get that name right, Eric?
Garrison Davis.
Henninger Garrison, she gave me there you go. Also a plaintiff's attorney here in Birmingham. I'll let you say something about yourself.
I'm from Birmingham, lived for all my life in Birmingham Southern, covering school law right down the road here. Been practicing for about 21 years, all civil litigation, all on plaintiff side. So what I term blood and guts work. Get to go against this guy in this firm quite a bit, unfortunately. But just love what I do, really enjoy getting to know the people, and I think I'm one of the rare people that actually knows getting around lawyers, so that helps in this presentation.
And then Scott Salter. Last time I saw Scott, it was up in Gadsden. He was defending a case against one of my law partners. Anyway, Scott, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Scott Salter, and I'm with Starnes Davis Flory, and we're a civil defense firm. And I've been practicing about 30 years. My practice is mainly devoted on the defense side. It's rare that I have a plaintiff's case. If I do, it's usually a commercial litigation type case, but mainly doing defense work, and within that representing doctors and hospitals and medical malpractice, as well as doing some commercial litigation on the defense side.
And then Judge Smitherman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a 40-year member of the Alabama State Bar. Before I had children, I was a member of Alabama State Bar. And speaking of children, the blonde
Raise your hand.
is our daughter Crystal. She is president pro tem of the Birmingham City Council and a practicing lawyer with her father. She graduated from the University of Alabama 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. Okay. 3 years ago. And so, we're political people, but we're also a legal people. So we have seen a lot, and I want to tell you a lot. I hope we have the time that we can get into the subject that we're here for. So thank you for the invitation, Layla, and it's good to be with these guys that I work with very often as a civil judge.
Judge, how many civil jury trials do you think that you have presided over?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. Maybe 40, 50. I love the crack cases. I just get your blood or just have a little civility with it too.
So why do we bring a program about civility in the law to law students? We bring it because it's a problem. And it maybe sitting in the classroom environment, it's difficult to perceive how big of a problem it is, but it is one that has actually probably been growing, not narrowing. And so we bring this program to you, and I'll start by giving you some examples of what I'm talking about. We've got also some deposition clips that I'm going to play for you to sort of introduce the concept of uncivil behavior and how can you offset uncivil behavior. So this is, for example, this is an email to Mr. whoever. And this stuff happens. This is like a real email. This isn't something we made for the presentation. So it starts with, profanity. And then it goes on. Stun gun. Okay, so this was, again, this is something that's actually, this isn't something we printed up for the presentation. This is out of that case that's at the bottom there. The trial court did not abuse its discretion by ordering terminating some sanctions after the plaintiff failed to pay sanctions. The plaintiff harassed opposing counsel, made highly contemptuous statements to the trial judge, and brandished pepper spray and discharged a stun gun at a deposition, which the trial judge said is the most outrageous behavior that I've ever seen in my life by an attorney. I have done thousands and thousands of depositions. I would guess that between the 3 attorneys here, we have done tens of thousands of depositions. I've never been in a deposition where a stun gun or pepper spray has been discharged, but obviously it happens. So the cover, this is the ABA journal. It's an issue. They write about it a lot. Also earlier this year, there was some said about it. Not only is it an issue noticed by the law, but I know it's hard to see these, but the Wall Street article says in part, a tide of rudeness has engulfed the legal profession. The adversarial system grows obscenely nasty. That's what's published in the Nationwide newspaper about us as lawyers. Terrible. The ABA journal article says that South Carolina was suspended for 90 days for uncivil behavior because he published demeaning, rude remarks about his city's mayor, such as he has no brains, and so forth. So it is out there. You sort of got to wonder, how did we get here? And what has happened to us? Because as I said, it seems to many that the uncivil behavior is growing. It's becoming more common, not less common. And so the law was really it is a learned profession. It is not a job, it is a profession. When you pass the bar and you take your oath, you are taking an oath as a professional to uphold not just yourself, but the entire, all your brothers and sisters of the law. So why are we getting more uncivil? The law is now a business. It's becoming more and more of a business. It is still a profession, but it's becoming more and more of a business. Litigation is becoming more and more expensive. Everything is becoming expensive. A competition as you turn on the news at any time of the day in Birmingham, you're going to see within the next 30 minutes, you're going to see 3 or 4 lawyers' ads. So the competition for the cases amongst plaintiffs' attorneys is very fierce. The competition is not always local. Some of the ads you see are for law firms. You may or may not know this. Parker Wakeman does a lot of law firm ads here. That is not an Alabama firm. I believe it's a New Jersey firm.
Which that,
Parker Wakeman. So the competition is not always local. The people that we're competing with don't know, we don't know them. We don't recognize them. We don't know their names. When you have faceless, nameless competition, I think it makes it easier to take things down to a low level of nastiness. Winning is becoming more and more important because people and lawyers perhaps feel like everything is at stake. There's no gracious losing. There isn't, you're not doing it for the law, you're doing it solely for the win. And then the political environment, I think, also contributes to that. I don't know if any of our panelists have anything they'd like to add. So why are we becoming more uncivil? Why is this the trend?
Well, I think you just hit on it just a moment ago. Politically, it's becoming more contentious, but we're all products of the environments that we live in. So as it gets more contentious out there, it kind of bleeds over into our profession a little bit. It's a hard fight. I think another thing is that you mentioned it's easy for if I've got a case with Scott and we've got a disagreement, I can pick up the phone and call him. I know Scott. He knows me. He knows I'm not going to send him an email with 4-letter words in it. I'm not going to yell at him. He's not going to do that to me. We will disagree, but we'll do it cordially. See if we can work it out. That doesn't happen very often when you've got somebody across state lines or even in a different city. It's just hard to do.
So true.
oh,
Judge, would you like to add to it?
I wanted to correct myself. I said 40 cases. That must be just for this year. So I've passed 1,000, 1,500.
Okay, I wasn't going to correct you because you're a judge. And I'm just a lawyer.
I think COVID has helped to isolate persons, and so when they do get in the courtroom, they are ready for it to try, they're ready for an answer. They want instant justice, and that will never work. And also the political polarization of people is also a factor. And then the economy. The cutting people really lawyer shop. They'll go to one lawyer and get a price from them or a percentage, and then they go to another one, and then when the lawyers find out that they've been undercut or overcharged or whatever, then that becomes a problem. So it's a myriad of problems that we have, but we on the way to solutions though.
Thank you. So throughout the history of the profession, it's always been important. Civility has always, and professionalism has always been important. And so the Alabama Lawyers Creed, which was approved by the Alabama Board of, excuse me, I'm looking at ABOTA's. This is ABOTA's Code of Professionalism. Always remember that the practice of law is first and foremost a profession. Next is the Alabama Lawyers Creed, which was approved by the Alabama Board of Bar Commissioners back in April of 1992. To the opposing parties in the council, I offer fairness, integrity, and civility. I will seek reconciliation, and if we fail, I will strive to make our dispute a dignified one. You're not going to reduce it into a dogfight. To the courts and to those who assist them, I offer respect, candor, and courtesy. I will strive to do honor to the search for justice. And to my colleagues in the practice, I offer concern for your welfare. I will strive to make our association a professional one, a professional friendship. Also, we have the Alabama Code of Professional Courtesy. This is a legal standard of care. It is not necessarily a disciplinary code. There is, in fact, it is not a disciplinary code. We have the Alabama Rules of Professional Conduct. That is our disciplinary code. These are guidelines, standards of care. A lawyer should not make unfounded accusations of unethical conduct against opposing counsel. We see that more and more frequently. A lawyer should never intentionally embarrass another lawyer and should avoid personal criticism of another lawyer. A lawyer should always be punctual. Every time you're late and there are two other people waiting on you, you have just wasted 3 times the amount of time, your time and both those people. Advocacy does not include harassment and needless delay. The practice of law is neither an opportunity to make outrageous demands upon vulnerable opponents, nor blind resistance to a just claim. And so this is our agenda. We want to show, as I said, we want to show you some more examples. Next are a couple of deposition clips. None of us, these are not our depositions. And we want to then talk about techniques to offset uncivil behavior, and also for how you can avoid uncivil behavior. It's easy to get to, you know, we're advocates in civil litigation. We're advocates, one party or the other, and it's very, very easy to get caught up in that. All right, let me see. Playing. Playing earlier.
So, Fred, once again, and I say this with all due respect, you are one of the most ignorant people I met. And your comments about this are ridiculous. And
This is not, I mean, you're trying to take advantage of the fact that she was continuing to harm you.
no, Fred, what I'm trying to tell you is that you're being a jerk, and that you're being an idiot and a jerk, and you've been this way the last 2 depositions. And I would really respectfully ask you to just sit there and be quiet and make appropriate objections, if you're going to make any at all, without making a speaking objection. Now, if you want to get on with this deposition, please do, but in the future, don't interrupt me with meritless comments.
I think you're the one that needs to get on the deposition.
Sit down, Fred. Sit down or get out.
Why don't you get out?
You got it.
All right, let me take you to the next one.
Your computer with regard to the searchable index to do not gate, especially in the field of addressees that say none, is your exhibit number 1.
He marked his computer as good.
Is good exhibit.
Counsel, first of all, you have no right to even claim an exhibit. It isn't your deposition yet. That's number 1, counsel.
So you've torn up, you've taken it off and torn up the exhibit.
Sir, you're not going to touch it. How dare you? You are going to go before the Bar Ethics Committee on this one, son. We're going to quit the deposition right now for the day so that you can rethink what you're doing.
Not very pretty. That is not the way to make an objection. That was nasty. So I'm gonna judge.
Ma'am,
What does it mean to be civil? Can we be adversaries, opponents, and still be civil?
that's the only way to practice law. You can't get anything done if you're acting like that, and folks is not funny. Don't laugh at them, they're not funny. because that's what they want, is that attention. It's an honor to be a lawyer. You know, you have respect and esteem in your environment, in your community, everywhere. Don't laugh at that. It's not funny. I have the same thing going on in my court right now. Same thing, and it wasn't funny to me. These two lawyers, right quick, couldn't get along from the beginning, and I was trying to soft shoe and pedal them, you know, come on, we can get this done. It was a really good case. And so finally, there was a mistake made about the deposition date. So the lawyer shows up, deposition's not set. The other lawyer put him out, called the police, all kind of stuff. So when they get to my court, on the motion to compare the deposition, the lawyer, the defendant's lawyer, gets so agitated, he bangs on my table. I said, "CD, you're gonna deny that kind of attitude didn't happen in her office, and it did. And that will not be acceptable. So from now on, whenever you have a deposition to you guys, you gotta come to the courthouse. Have deposition so I can supervise you." Now, I shouldn't have to do that. That's not what lawyers do. That's not how, it's a profession, as we keep saying. And there are I had litigants in that fighting like 2-3 weeks ago. What was the lawyer's responsibility? Because he got talking words, you know? What's the lawyer supposed to do? Take your client and get him or her under control and then come back. This profession is as old as time, and we're going to continue to respect it.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you very much for that. I had my deposition taken as a witness about a month ago. And it was, there was day one, and then a week later was day two. On day two, through some misunderstanding, each of the attorneys, the plaintiff's attorney and the defense attorney, brought their own court reporter. We sat for 30 minutes while they were in the hallway, my lawyer and I, while they're in the hallway arguing about which court reporter is gonna get to take the deposition, because there can only be one. There can only be one record. They finally, unable to agree that the reporter that started the deposition should finish the deposition, they decided to call the federal court judge presiding over the case. And he told them that if they didn't work it out in 5 minutes, they should call him back. And he would do rock, paper, scissors, and the loser would get sanctioned and the winner would get to use their reporter. That's terrible. It was unbelievable. Being civil doesn't mean you're being weak. You're not giving up anything. It is not good enough, as you heard in that first depo clip, with all due respect, is not the excuse for them losing your cool. What does it mean to be uncivil? All right, so this is an excerpt of a deposition. Let's see. We have sent you offers to settle. You have dragged us through this nonsense. You can sanction $6,000, and yet you keep this nonsense up. Now we'll take a lunch break. And based on your little preface a minute ago, I'll go through with my client various paragraphs so he can come back in here and answer your questions. Defense counsel, okay, fine. I would appreciate it if you maintain your professionalism. Plaintiff counsel, I cannot because you're an idiot. Defendant counsel, I share that view of you based on your statements. And it just goes on and on and on. Just a total waste. And it ends with the plaintiff's counsel saying, pay your damn sanctions. I mean, what have they accomplished? They haven't accomplished anything. And worse, this is in the deposition transcript. It's going to be part of the record. Either lawyer Anybody can take that and make it part of the record and send it to Judge Snowden if she's got the case. It doesn't look good for anybody.
Don't solve anything. Waste the time.
So, Scott, what do you think? Are uncivil lawyers beating on the table and pushing others around, does that make you successful?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, we talk about is, people think that's the way. I think a lot of people that do it, that it's the way you should practice law, that you're not representing your client, if you're not picking the fight, if you're not making a big deal out of things. And in the end, really, you're not representing your client the best way you can. We talk about it, that people we deal with that are the hardest to deal with, and not to say that they're not successful, but they're a lot less successful than they could be by being civil. When we talk about civility, I want to say this, it's not just as a lawyer to other lawyers, it's to the clients of the opposing party, whether it's the plaintiff or whether it's the defendant. It's deep in how we deal with judges, and she's going to appreciate this. It's how you deal with their staff, because she's got legal assistants, she's got secretaries, and they're working as hard as they can to keep everything greased and running. And I've seen some attorneys who have just, treated her staff, not just her staff, but all staff in a terrible way. And what I always tell people is, the example of it is, some point you're going to have something you want set for a hearing, or you're going to want to pick up the phone and say, oh, I've got a case set for trial next week. And what y'all may not realize is she just doesn't have one case set for trial. She's got 10. And you may not know which one's going to try. And you're going to want to know if your case is going to try. Well, if you haven't been real nice to her legal assistant, you may not get some information that you would like.
We'll know.
But there's so much that goes into it of what you should be thinking about and how you deal with people. And I'll talk just real quick and give a couple of examples
Please.
and of things. And I brought my prop that I was trying a case about 15 years ago. And I got in my opening, and it was maybe longer. That's when Houston Brown was still on the bench. And I'm sitting there and I'm doing my opening statement. And the plaintiff's attorney had an empty water bottle. And he knew exactly what he was doing. And about, he did it like that long. And I turned and I looked at him. And he stopped, and I started again. And I turned and looked again, and he stopped. If you can believe it, he then started a third time. And I think Judge Brown was waiting maybe for me to say something or do something, but I knew how mad he was. You could see how mad the jury was with what was going on. And the third time it happened, Judge Brown just dressed the plaintiff's attorney down. He just let him have it in front of the jury about what he was doing. And if he ever thought that what he was doing was serving his client or helping him with the jury, I don't know where he would have gotten that thought. The other thing I'll touch on briefly, you talk about civility, is lying or misrepresenting things to the bench. It's how you treat, and because you're here, I can tell a story, and I hope it won't be too bad. I don't think it's bad, but I had a case in front of Judge Smitherman. I had co-defendants, and we had and this talks about being civil and not embarrassing your, other lawyers. And it was clearly a statute of limitations argument that applied. And we all three filed motions for summary judgment on the statute of limitations, and I argued it first. And I was very simple and straightforward and got done. And, Judge Smitherman looked at me and said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Salter." And the next lawyer that went, his whole argument really started out almost with, "Well, let me tell you why Mr. Henniger committed malpractice. And let me tell you how bad of an attorney he is. And he just doesn't do it in this case. He does it in every case." And to this judge's credit, you know, and it's just lawyers in there, but I think, you know, you did the right thing. She kind of called that defense attorney out and said, you know, this is a courtroom and you conduct yourself with the proper decorum and you conduct yourself in the proper way. And she said, you know, that's not the way you argue this motion.
That's right, and he lost. He should have, I mean, it's definitely.
But-
What it was.
But, you know, and then it's just things like conducting yourself the right way, like I say, in depositions and how you handle yourself. You know, it's not a place that you're cussing at people. It's not a place that, and that's, you know, we talk about some of this, but, you know, I'm sure Eric will tell you and Layla will tell you, you know, we see depositions. And I mean, I on a semi-routine basis, where you have people that get mad and they're cussing or doing something, you're just kind of like, no, that's not the way that you do things.
So one of the statements up here is bad conduct creates a bad reputation. The follow-up to my deposition and the phone call to the judge and the, you know, the whole argument over which court reporter is going to get to take the deposition. The next morning, the very next morning after the deposition, I'm down in the federal courthouse that we have this coffee with the federal judges. Pops up maybe once or twice a year. And I went down at 8 o'clock in the morning to have coffee with the federal judges along with 150 other members of the Birmingham Bar Association. And the judge involved, the one they called on the phone, was there, but he's not the person that came up and talked to me. It was Judge Kugler, who presides in Tuscaloosa. He came up and talked to me and he said, I heard what happened last night. Those lawyers are in trouble. Judge Kugler had nothing to do with the case, but bad conduct, word of bad conduct creates a bad reputation and it's just gonna spread. And it's a stink you're gonna have a hard time getting rid of.
Like, you know what judges talk about in chambers? We call each other brothers and sisters. So what we talk about in chambers is get with the bad lawyers who are having conduct that is not up to coming overboard. That's what we talk about. Oh, we eat our sandwiches. Okay, waiting for the doctor to come up. That's what we're talking about. It's
I
spread
always
so
thought that
quickly.
was true.
Not gonna tell you all our secrets.
Civility should be the norm. Again, this is the Alabama Code of Professional Courtesy. A lawyer should maintain a cordial and respectful relationship with opposing counsel. These are our standards. This is Alabama's standards for our profession. Let's see. ABOTA, the principles of civility. This is the ABOTA standard, our organization standard. One thing that bad conduct guarantees is you're not going to get into ABOTA or other similar organizations. What should you do if you receive an argumentative, nasty email, letter, or voicemail from your opponent? Let's see, I think we have an example. I hate your bleeping existence. What you did to my property was a vicious attack against the sumac cover planted by Irene Polson. More importantly, as far as I'm concerned, in the 26 years that I've practiced law, I have never met on a limited basis a more despicable, self-made effing slime bag, and I piss on your existence. What I wanted to tell you specifically is to take this letter and jam it up your yada yada yada, etc., resulting in severe paper cut. Wow. So why do I have that letter? Because it went viral. That again, this isn't stuff that we make up as we go along for the presentation. These are real. So what do you do when that happens? You know, I'll address this to the lawyers. Let's see. When you get those kind of bad letters and bad emails, Here's this again, this is from the court. $5,000 sanction. That's a pretty steep sanction. $5,000 sanction for writing a letter to the court stating that his opponent's manner of practicing law indicates that she fits more as a crown and a service than an attorney in a court of law. All right. I'm just moving a little quick since we want to make sure we have enough time to get through everything.
I'll jump in real quick because we haven't talked about it as you're going through, but you know, the one thing I would say on that is you don't want to be the person that's sending that email or that letter. I think the biggest thing that's changed since I started practicing law 30 years ago is it was true for Layla and before she was ever on the bench is, you know, I'm old enough that we didn't have voicemail. We didn't have fax machines. You didn't have computers. And, you know, the way, or you had them, but they were the green screen and you didn't really do anything with them and send emails. But, you know, if Eric wanted to send me a letter that was going to get me mad, you know, he would have to dictate it. He would have to get because you had secretaries really type things out. She would have to type it. And it would take at least 24 or 48 hours for him to get a letter back and before it could ever go out. And by the time all that happened, Eric would come to his senses and not send that letter. And that's the way it used to be. And now everything's instant. And people send things instantly. They come back instantly. And I think it really contributes to what we have. And what I always tell, you know, young lawyers is don't fall for the bait. Don't do it. You know, if you get that, number one, don't be the person that sends that email. And number two, don't respond to it in the same way. You know, take your time and think. And
Oops, I'm sorry. Well, I don't know how to stop it.
To clean or do work at the thing happen.
No.
You get through that. What you get through? You have to have them other property. Okay? That's all. Much that from my other property. You want you to know about happening from there? That's how. That's what you do. You don't say about give me proper tax on my property. What are you talking about? Pick up that. No, I don't take it. You don't want to talk my other property from my wife or my children or any other business. Who asked you? No, I don't break. That brain was made. What it? Why people see people? What? Go ahead. What you want over here? These other people say, hey, what you want from happen over here? You don't know your client here. You liar. Number one liar. If I'm not a more thing like you, woman, it's not pity. I don't want to break. I want to go out. What are you talking about? Who are you? From my property. Huh? You tell me what power came from me.
Okay, that was not a good deposition.
yeah, I was gonna say, I'll finish my thought. And I'll talk
Yeah,
about that.
sorry
You
about
couldn't-
that.
I know you couldn't understand him. This is my last one to say on filing things. In Alabama for the last several years, we also have e-filing. And so, you know, again, the same, it has gotten so more toxic in what is actually being filed with the courts and personal attacks and documents. Because when I file something, it goes out and it's going to hit Eric's or Layla's email in a matter of minutes. And they can have a response to it in a matter of minutes to hours, probably, if they don't like something I've said. And we see, because of that, so much more toxic language in what's actually filed with the courts and things that are personal attacks. And it really is awful, and it makes it uncivil. And I'll touch on this real quick, because that was shown because where we're going with this next segment was really talking about preparing your own clients, because your client should be civil. and how they conduct themselves. And a lot of that is preparation and working with them and having them ready. But I want to tell a couple of stories real quick, and then I'll let other people speak. The first is really, it illustrates it, but it's one of the funniest things I've, in retrospect, seen somebody do. But I was in a deposition and I had a co-defendant who was a professional and he was being deposed. And he also had a law degree. And as he was finishing up an advanced degree, he was also in law school. He was actually at the University of Pennsylvania. And so the plaintiff's attorney at one point said, well, why, when you're getting these other advanced degrees, did you go back and go to law school since you had already started? And the guy, just with a straight face, looks at him and says, well, you know, as I was finishing my other degrees, I had this accident and, you know, I had some brain damage, and there was really a question whether I could continue with what I wanted to be my career. So I went to law school. And I can honestly say there were about 12 lawyers in the room. It went over everybody's head because he said it with such a straight face. And about an hour later, the plaintiff's attorney looked back at him and said, sir, I'm sorry, but I've got to go back into it. Can we talk about your brain injury a little bit? And the guy just looked at him and said, sir, you know, I think you're the one with brain damage if you didn't understand what I was doing. I mean, it was, I mean, but you know, he shouldn't have done that, and it reflected poorly on him as the client, and the way you should handle that up front. But I'll tell my second real quick story because I know we're running on time, because it happened this week, and it's the illustration of it. Is I was in a deposition, and it was a video deposition, and we started about 9 a.m. And the comments to our rules of civil procedure on video depositions say that really you are right at trying to limit the video deposition at 5 hours in a day. And you should come back because it is very taxing. It is very mentally difficult to do. But about 3 in the afternoon, and we had about 4.5 hours of testimony, and I said something to the plaintiff's attorney about, you know, if we had about 6 o'clock, we may want to stop, we may need to come back. And he seemed all right with it. And I said, I'll make it available again within the next couple of weeks. And we had about 6:15, and we had probably over 7 hours of testimony easily. And I said, let's take a break. Let's talk about what we're going to do to finish up and come back, because he probably has 4 hours of testimony left that he wants to get. And he just flew off the handle. We are finishing tonight. We're going to finish tonight no matter how long we have to stay here. And I said, you know, my opponent's tired. We're justified in stopping this deposition. I'll get him back up. And before I could say anything else, my client, who is sitting in the chair, stands up and like kind of lords over the plaintiff's attorney and says, damn it, didn't you hear him? I am tired and this deposition is over. And before I can say anything else, I mean, he and the plaintiff's attorney, we're off the record, thank goodness, are at it in each other's faces. And I'm just sitting there going, you shut up, we're leaving. And, you know, I'll kind of walk out of the building and we're going to finish it next Monday, but it really deteriorated very quickly because of the incivility of the plaintiff's attorney in refusing to, you know, stop the deposition and pick it back up. And then my client's, you know, what he felt was the incredulous position that the plaintiff's attorney was taking.
Eric, have you ever had a client that went off the rail like that?
Fortunately, no. I don't think it's anything that I've done. I've just been fortunate.
And I'll bet you prep your clients.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time preparing them. You know, we generally have an idea of where they're going to go, what the hot spots are going to be that are going to be emotional, and just kind of get them prepared for that. So if you do it the right way and do it sometimes with kid gloves, you can prepare people so there's not an outburst. I think once someone knows that it's going to reflect poorly on them for the rest of the case, that kind of curtail behavior. Joe, you want to say something?
I did right quick. There was an objection in the trial 2 weeks ago. We needed to take the party, we need to take the lawyers in chambers so we can talk about the issue outside the presence and hearing of the jury. So we went in chambers, and as soon as we closed the door, the plaintiff got out the witness stand, got the jury still in the box, says, "That little dumb son of a bitch." And I heard him. I said, "No, he didn't." So that's a mistrial. So all that preparation, all that money, that the lawyers spent, we had to start all over again. And I asked his wife, "Why don't you don't control him?" He said, "No, I didn't know he was gonna act like that." But you always expect that. So anyway.
This is another definition of a witness that sort of goes off the rail. Defense counsel makes an objection. Well, the question is, how about your own net worth, Mr. Jock, to the witness? The witnesses get off my back, you slimy SOB. Calls and repeats it, you slimy SOB again, you slimy it anyways. When I'm with, like Eric says, I prep my clients. My clients are not sophisticated. They are, oftentimes it's their first encounter with this justice process. And one of the things I always teach them is, if you think you're getting mad, you must ask for a break. You have to get away from the examiner, because you're getting mad at the examiner, you've got to leave, get away. Because just as, you know, I remember my elders telling me, if you're mad, count to 5 before you speak. If you're really mad, count to 10. And the basis for that advice is still true, and that is anger and intelligence cannot coexist in the same person at the same time. If you're mad, you're going to say something that you're going to regret. And so we have to prep our clients for that, that if you think you're getting mad, we need to get you out of the deposition room before this happens, or before, like what we saw with the sea captain video. What if you're in a deposition and your opponent improperly objects, coaches the witnesses, insults your client? Let's see, Eric. What have you encountered that, and how have you offset that?
I've thought of a lot of panels dealing with civility. For some reason, plaintiff lawyer always gets this question. I don't know if that means objecting on that sense. So it happens a lot. I think it happens once you get out of law school, start taking some depositions. Someone's going to challenge you, and it's not nice, it's not fair, it's not civil, but it's a test, and you got to be ready for it. I truly believe that. Happened to me, it's happening to some of our young boys right now. But the one thing about, not the one thing, but a few things that I tell you, is make sure you understand the law. And listen, be patient, take a beat before you say something. And the most important thing, if you leave here with nothing, I think summarize what we've all said is, do not engage with an argument, because you will not win. You will actually both lose. But know what you can do. Sometimes if a defense lawyer objects, guess what? There's a chance he may be right. Maybe it's a bad question. So let me think. I ask a bad question. Sometimes I'll look at it and say, well, what was wrong with that question? Get him to tell me. 90% of the time, they can't tell me. They're just objecting because they don't like it. Or just ignore it. That drives some lawyers crazy because they want the attention, they want the engagement. I always stay locked in with the defendant, looking in their eyes. I'm not paying it. He or she and I are doing what's in the according to me. And then if it keeps going on, there are a couple things you can do. You can suspend the deposition and call the judge. I never do that because I've yet to win that.
A lot of times you don't get the judge.
True.
You get him anyway.
And I still don't win. But sometimes I'll try and play on the experience of a lawyer. You know, Scott Cody's been practicing for 30 years. He's been practicing almost a decade longer than me. He doesn't do this, but if he did, I'd say, Scott, look, you've been practicing longer than me. You know the law probably better than me. You know that you're not supposed to be objecting the way that you are in this case or in this deposition. So I just ask you, out of courtesy to me, your client, and the court reporter, will you just object for the record and let us move on? And if you do it in a nice way, do it in a respectful way, he's unlikely to get upset. It's harder to get angry and start cussing when someone's respectful towards you. So those are some ways that I've handled it and been pretty successful in the past. And real quickly, I want to touch on what Scott said, and you said about emails and filings. And it's absolutely true. I talk to people in my firm constantly. Stop email. If you have a problem with the person in the cubicle beside you, stand up, walk to 10 feet and say, what'd that mean? That's all you gotta do. We had a case just recently resolved, thank goodness. It's a very difficult case. My dad was I practiced with my dad. He's been practicing for 50 years almost now. And a new lawyer got in the case and wasn't familiar with the record. And prior defense lawyer had made an admission on the record. And Judge who happens on it. And that new lawyer didn't know about it. So we're walking along in the case and something happens and he finds out about it, thinks that my father had made a statement that is untrue. So instead of picking up the phone or walking over to our office and talking about it, he files a bar complaint with the state board. Now has to be responded to. He also attaches the bar complaint to a motion to dismiss with the judge. So now she's aware of the bar. So he fires off a response. It goes up, it almost goes to the Supreme Court on interlocutory appeal because of the bar complaint. Here's the good part. We were a week away from the trial. We had a meeting confirmed that we had to do with some issue in the case. So we go up to the offices and meet, and we're face to face. And my dad, who's known this guy for a long time, swoops in and says, look, we've been friends. I thought we were friends for a while. I'm gonna tell you, my ego's hurt. I'm very offended by what you did. I'm glad we got it resolved. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna respect you and continue to treat you with respect, but we're not friends anymore. I don't know that I'll ever get past what you did, but we're gonna be cordial. We're gonna try next week when we do it the right way. And I'll be damned if that same lawyer didn't pick up the phone the next morning and call and say, I got something on the board. And he admitted, what you said changed my perspective, and you're right. I was out of line when I did that, and I've got some authority in this case. And we did it. That would not have happened but for the meeting and being in person. Emails exchanged going back and forth doesn't work. But you know, I started to go and do lunch with defense lawyers. God forbid, can you believe that? It's amazing. No, if we got a discovery issue, let's just go down here to Barclays Joint and have some lunch. It's amazing.
Let me put this one up with Eric saying that. This is Shakespeare taking it as true. And do as adversaries do in the law. Strive mightily, but eat and drink as friends. Call up Scott Salter every now and then and say, Scott, what are you doing? Let's get together for lunch.
And that works.
Yeah, and we're out of time. I'll add. I agree with what they say. I mean, I think the biggest thing that's changed in my 30 years, and a judge would kill me for saying this, we used to have these giant dockets in Birmingham. You would go down, there'd be 300 people in the courtroom. You knew all the attorneys, you knew their families, you knew who they were, and that ended up with a need for efficiency. But it's a lot harder to get mad at people when you know them, and you know their families.
Absolutely.
And that's probably to me, the single biggest thing that's changed is the business and the way we can just conduct ourselves. You just don't know people anymore.
Parting shot, Eric, Judge.
Don't leave when the lawyers are talking. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You can play 5 minutes for class. Oh, if there's some stipulation, you can't. I mean, what him was saying was very important. That was the crux of everything. Lawyers sit down and talk to each other. We respect each other. We work together. Because that is how you make your money. Okay? So I admire you all here, and I saw you look at each other and say, do we need to leave? Do we need to? No, just wait a few minutes. You got 150 years worth of experience in here. It doesn't come often that you get this kind of conversation, casual conversation, where you can ask questions or do whatever. So enjoy the law. Next time I see y'all, know how many cases I cried.
We'll stay for questions if you have any questions or you just want to come up and introduce yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.